Who says doctors don't make house calls anymore? We found one. And I cannot take full credit for this because I saw the story in the Providence Journal like maybe some of you did. Dr. Lauren Hedde is my guest tonight. And yes, she makes house calls, and it's actually part of her business model, which I think is a long time in coming. Nice to have you in. Dan York, State of Mind. We got a lot on our plate tonight. It's a big night. I'm going to hit the big one tonight. I can feel it. Anyway, wait till you find out how much Jess wants. It's surprising, actually. And it was a pathetic scene, and it's really an even more pathetic response. I don't know which is worse, actually. And this ain't no better in the city of Providence. The president is looking for the approval, which tells us, I don't know, maybe the allies aren't getting it done, or the other Arab warriors aren't getting it done when it comes to ISIL. And I think he's all done. If he's your favorite anchor, kiss him goodbye. This is unbelievable. And of course, the coach takes the high road, and your state of mind is important to us. We will check it out. Let's dig in, Laura. Let's get through this thing with flying colors, with precision, and with some hopeful on-the-mark commentary from your host. It was a pathetic scene, an awful response to the pathetic scene. The headline, Joe Almeida, we talked about it yesterday, and now we see he in the courtroom, district court. Look at this. This is a sitting state representative who's cuffed in signing the paperwork. It's just brutal to see that. You know, I've known Joe for a long time, easygoing guy, but there's no excuses for what he's been charged with. Now, he's innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't mean that the response from leadership ought to be as nonchalant as it is. Nick Mattiello, the House Speaker, who, by the way, brought Joe Almeida into leadership, House Deputy Whip. There's a lot of titles in the General Assembly, just like bankers' titles, but he brought him into leadership knowing full well that he was jammed up. Now he knows nothing. He talked to our newsroom.
Right now, I believe he's presumed innocent, so only he knows the facts. I have not spoken to Representative Almeida, so I don't know what the facts of the case are, and I leave him to his own decisions. I'm certainly disappointed, and beyond that, not knowing the facts, I can't be anything else. I'm disappointed.
By the way, when I say our newsroom, it's my other job at WPRO. Of course, our newsroom in this building would be Eyewitness News. You know how that all goes. But the Speaker of the House, disappointed. How about outraged? How about fit to be tied? How about I'm bringing my leadership team together and one more time saying our image is important? How about the future of this state is highly dependent on our reputations? How about that? Well, he's not guilty yet. Look, this case, if you read it, is self-explanatory. This, I don't know nothing. He's, this, he's innocent to proven guilty. I haven't spoken. You haven't spoken to him, Nick. If I'm the House Speaker and my deputy whip is jammed up like this, I'm on the phone saying, man, what is going on here? What? Anyway, you think that was pathetic? How about this one? $47,000 in fines. You've got to read Dan McGowan's story at WPRI.com. This is unfathomable. 5 years of delinquency. 5 years. He didn't file his campaign finance reports. Well, I didn't raise a lot of money in this quarter, and I didn't raise a lot of money in that quarter. The Board of Elections is peppering this guy just like Almeida. Almeida is charged with stealing from his account. This guy's not. He's just not filing his documents on time. Now, all of us have been late for something or other, one time or another, and you cure it. 5 years of delinquency. Now, he was interviewed with the big, kumbaya with the new mayor the other day, and he's talking about the future of the city. Here he is.
I think there's a sense of hopefulness in the city. I think there's an opportunity to begin to create that climate that invites good development. I think there are a lot of people sitting on the sideline wondering what the future of Providence will be, and I think that it is incumbent on us to ensure that that momentum continues.
Oh, sounds great, Louis. Louis Aponte, City Council President, $47,000 worth of fines to the Board of Elections, and he's looking to make a settlement now that he's filed 25 late quarterly reports. Who is going to take this guy seriously in dealing in high-level, business acquisition, a 195 redevelopment. This clown couldn't even file his reports on time and obviously didn't care. Could we have a revote on the city council? He won narrowly that position. And Jorge Elorza, I know he's not your ally, and I know it's probably politically incorrect, and I know he supported Cianci, and I know you don't want to start a fight, but how about stepping up and saying something like, we can't have leadership that is so indifferent to the rules of law. Oh, Lord. All right. Speaking of the rules of law, the president has got to ask for approval. As we began the taping of our broadcast late this afternoon, the president was actually speaking on this. Headline, yes, a formal request for authorization. Here's the CBS roundup at press time.
My immediate reaction is heartbreak.
Just a day after vowing retaliation against ISIS militants responsible for the death of 26-year-old aid worker Kayla Mueller, President Obama will ask Congress to authorize a 3-year plan to use military force against the terror group. This one would open the door for the use of U.S. ground troops, but prohibit a lengthy offensive. While many Democrats are weary of beginning a drawn-out mission in the Middle East, some Republicans want all options on the table in the fight against ISIS.
Well, it seems that our allies, both European and Arab, are not getting it done. There's all kinds of conversations about the president saying today that we're beating them at their own game, but we wouldn't be asking for ground troops if we really were. This latest hostage death, this beautiful young woman, 26 years of age, humanitarian work. It's unconscionable, but something's wrong here with this picture. You know what? It always happens that if you can't, it seems like you got to do something yourself. It looks like America is right back in that driver's seat, ironically, with this president. Stay tuned. It's going to be quite the debate in Congress. A guy who will be reporting on it and will be sitting on the bench, Brian Williams, headline, he is suspended for 6 months. That may have taken your breath away, but I can promise you this is the precursor for all gone. Here's the latest.
Brian Williams took himself off the anchor desk at Nightly News with the intention of returning in a matter of days. Tuesday night, NBC executives extended that leave for 6 months, suspending Williams without pay. Friday, January 30th, Williams misrepresented events that occurred during his coverage of the Iraq War.
When the helicopter we were traveling in was forced down after being hit by an RPG.
Williams later acknowledged his error. NBC says it is also investigating other comments Williams made about his experiences in the field.
He ain't coming back after 6 months. The numbers will be down. He still won't be trusted. I hope he plays golf. I could go for a 6-month suspension at his former income. Watch out for this guy. Yes, Jon Stewart announced he is done with his highly rated and award-winning broadcast on Comedy Central at the end of the year. You say, what do you mean, watch out for this guy? Oh, a little time off, a little, a couple of, a lesser jokeable show. Watch how the tone of his program will start to become a little bit more serious. NBC might just make a move and make this guy the new face of trustworthy anchoring. Remember, I told you that. Speaking of trustworthy, it is brutal. I mean, it's like nothing but misbehavior in the news. You got cheaters in Little League? Say it ain't so. The Chicago team that beat our own Cumberland, Rhode Island team there at the end reportedly used players from outside the city district that it was designed to only recruit from. Yes, some suburban players played there. So they have lost their title as national champions. And Dave Belial, who coached the Cumberland Little League team, as always, takes the high road.
Doesn't take away what we accomplished.
Right.
If anything, it emphasizes the fact that we were recognized for fair play, sportsmanship. So if anything, I think the attention would be drawn to what we accomplished even more now. I really, really feel bad for, believe it or not, the young boys for Jackie Robinson, just the kids, because they didn't know about this. It's just organizers did, and that's the shameless part,
Predictable that Dave would be empathetic to those kids. Actually, Cumberland got more attention probably for Dave's speech at the end of the loss than the Chicago kids got for a national championship. But still, my goodness. All righty, your state of mind, just call us, email us, tweet at us, Facebook post, you name it. You can do it. And here's a few. What are these? These are Facebook posts. Oh, on what to do with the snow. Pollution concerns. Dump it. Dump it in the river already. I got a little reading I did on Boston and the number of tons of salt on the roads versus the salt in the water. And there's some scientific thought that it wouldn't hurt so bad in Boston Harbor, maybe a little bit more concentrated here, but we get one more whopper, not tomorrow, but this weekend, and it may be snow in the river. We'll stay tuned on that. A doctor who makes house calls. This is a special conversation. Stay with us. As soon as I saw this story in the Providence Journal, I said, we got to get this doctor in here. I was absolutely moved by the story. It is, I think, a model that is a long time coming. So good for Richard Salit for, is it salad or salad? Salad, yeah, salad. I always get that. Richard, I've mangled your name a million times, but thanks for the report. Welcome, doctor. Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
This is incredible. I mean, just the sight and the notion that you come out of your car with your medicine bag and see the patient is something that probably is, what's her number, right?
Right.
What happened since the publicity in the paper?
I have gotten a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of patients going online and scheduling visits. It's been really exciting.
But it's a model. It's a business model. It's not just a big-hearted doctor doing something, leaving the office practice because a special patient, and in this case, the highlight was a patient who's chronically afflicted with MS and her husband who's 10 years older, and so thank God for you. I'm sure that's how they feel. And you're probably extending her life simply by knowing that someone's going to come to see her. But this is what? Something that you figured out has got to be a new way of doing business?
It is, yeah. It's a whole business model. So I started this practice about 6 months ago, and the idea came from being a patient myself, having a little girl who, she's a year and a half, so she had to go to the doctors a lot for the first year, and sort of seeing that there were all these problems in the medical system. And not that I'm fixing all of them, but I'm trying to sort of address the issues that a lot of patients see. So the frustrations of not being able to reach your doctor when you want to reach them, having to wait months to get in for a visit that you really like to have sooner, having to wait in the waiting room. All of those things are things that I found were sort of poor in the current system. And I thought that this model of going outside of the typical insurance reimbursement model was really something that allowed me to practice in a different way. One of those things is home visits, but there's many other things that I think make it beneficial.
Okay, so you're in the typical system and you're seeing problems with the typical system and say, I can carve out a new way of doing business. Did you research this?
I did,
okay.
It took a good year of researching it and coming up with the model that I wanted to practice in. I had learned about what was out there, and this is sort of a movement, direct primary care, that's come from the West Coast and has slowly been making its way out here. Mine is the first practice like it in Rhode Island. And in researching it, I found that it works in every state, so why couldn't it work here? And so I decided to take the risk and try it.
Right. The essential differences in terms of in fact, there's good, Laura, she's always on top of things. You've got not only a website that will make sure that you can look up and contact the doctor, but there's also another video that we had that we might play it later, but the point is that there's a paradigm here where patient gets approved by insurance, and assurance decides in many ways what doctor you can and will see. That's not how this is working with you and your patients. What's happening?
So it's really simple. Patients pay me a monthly subscription fee. So it's kind of like a gym membership. It's between $50 and $100 a month for adults and $10 for kids. And that amount of money then allows me to do whatever the patient needs. So if they need a home visit because they can't make it out, I can do that. If they need an hour and a half visit with me in the office, I can do that. If they need to talk to me on the phone rather than coming into the office, that's another thing that I'm able to do in a different way from a typical practice.
Is it coverable?
What do you mean by that?
The fee is non-insurance coverable.
Right. So it's something that patients are choosing.
It's an out-of-pocket expense.
It's an out-of-pocket expense that patients are choosing for the value that they're receiving from being a part of my practice. So
And-
most patients in my practice do have insurance.
Right.
But they use that insurance for things like labs, medications, emergency surgeries, all the things that can come up. But they pay that fee on top of their insurance premiums in most cases so that they can be a part of my practice and experience this higher level of care and
The
service.
patient that you were dealing with who was pictured, who is afflicted with a pretty bad case of MS, if I recall in the story, it was $150 a month, and her husband was $100 a month.
Right.
Wow. How many times do you see patients like that? We don't have to talk about her specifically, but
Yeah.
as much as necessary?
As much as necessary, absolutely.
How do you plan your day? How do you, now
Day
you're
by
laughing,
day,
you're a young mother too, right?
Yep, I am.
And your
I
husband
am.
is also a doc?
Mhm.
Okay, so, but when you studied the model and now that you're working the model, is it becoming a little bit of a thing?
It's a balancing act,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think it's something that I'm able to handle well. And part of the reason I did this kind of a practice is to have that work-life balance, because that's really important for me. And I felt that doing it this way, owning my own business, being an entrepreneur, allowed me to shape it in the way that I wanted to.
Does it affect the way you treat and diagnose versus seeing patients in the office?
You mean going to the home versus seeing them in the office? I think it does, because seeing somebody in their home environment is really telling. You see their family, you learn about how they live, what they require at home in order to live their life. And to me, those are huge pieces when you're looking from a family medicine and primary care perspective that are important to know about a patient. I also think just in the office, the patients who I see regularly in the office, which are majority of my patients, having more time and doing it in this model, I'm able to really delve a lot deeper with patients.
So what's the split between office and on the road?
Probably about 10 or 15% on the road. The
And
rest
how do you
is in
qualify
the office.
for an on-the-road visit?
Well, either you've decided that you need all your visits at home when you join the practice, like the patient featured in the article, that's what she needed.
That's
or,
on the rate card?
What's that?
Is that on the rate card in terms of the
Exactly.
expense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's $150 a month if you're considered homebound. So
Right.
that can be for any reason, but you've decided all your visits need to be at home. For everybody else, if something comes up and they can't make it in for whatever reason, they're too sick, they're not feeling up to it, whatever, I will work with them and do a home visit however I can squeeze it into my schedule. And patients know that if I can't see you today, then at worst I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about how this kind of work might impact future generations of medical practice. Stay with us. So there's that model I was talking about. I know that Laura threw it up during our last conversation, and the traditional model is enough to drive people crazy. It brings a lot of anxiety to patients who need care. They're hoping that somebody behind a telephone is going to approve what you can do for them, and
Right.
it's unnerving. This notion that I could pay you monthly to be able to see you, and that comes out of my pocket, is an interesting conversation in terms of the big picture. I once had a conversation with a specialist who said to me, I think this model is completely back blankwards. He said, I think that people ought to pay a la carte for their doctor's visits. If you take a look at all the premiums that you're paying in your health insurance, either deducted from your payroll or you're paying out, the new health exchange, whatever, and then the deductibles that come along with it, if you took that budget and you decided to do something like you're doing with you, and then bought catastrophic health insurance for something that is long-term hospital stay, major affliction, people would be better off. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with that. I think that that would be a better setup than what we have now. So if patients were able to, and some patients are moving towards this and joining my practice, if they were able to get a catastrophic plan and partner that with a membership in a direct primary care practice, then what they need most of, which is primary care, prevention, wellness, sick visits, would be covered by that subscription membership. And then if something came up, like what you're talking about, a major event, then they would have their insurance to cover that. A lot of the DPC practices across the country use the car insurance analogy. So if your car insurance was to cover everything, so windshield wipers, gas, all the little things that are common but don't cost very much, then it would make your car insurance so expensive that some
Right.
people couldn't afford it.
Right.
So I look at it the same way
Do
here.
you think the health insurance industry wants us to go that way?
No.
No.
I don't think so. But I think it's only from not knowing enough about it. You know, I think that I am actually saving the insurance companies money. And of course, I don't have the numbers or the data at this point to prove that. But, you know, I believe that I'm saving money, not just because if a patient has a visit with me, I'm not billing that through insurance. So they're definitely saving that fee amount. But also because I think I'm preventing downstream costs. So a patient like the patient in the article or someone similar to her could easily be in and out of the emergency room in the hospital regularly.
Constantly.
Constantly.
Bed sores. This, I mean, just the just
There's a million
the
things.
million
Yeah.
things that come from this that I think
Yeah.
you're like able to tell caretakers to watch out for it, like a
Exactly.
team concept
Right.
type of thing.
And the husband of that patient, he emails me, he calls me, keeps me up to date. It's not that I'm there visiting her every single day, but we have this open line of communication that's impossible in the traditional practice.
You know, if you got 15 minutes with you, I'm lucky. I've got you know, an internist practice. You know, I try to stay on top of it. Annual visits, you know, come in. I'm always checking the cholesterol, you know, the whole thing. But I like my guys,
Yep.
and so while they're doing the thing, we're talking about politics, the show, sports, whatever, families, back and forth. I've been with them a long time. I'm very fortunate to have them. But I think there's a lot of pressure that people feel. Sometimes they just want to talk to their doctor.
Yeah.
You giving this kind of time in office and coming to the home really creates a relaxed attitude, and maybe you're encouraged to actually see the doctor more.
I think so.
And stay healthier.
Right. More and sooner, to bring things up before they become big issues that become big expenses for the patient and the insurance company and the whole system.
What happens when you get too much business now with all this attention? You're going to add doctors and run a whole big show?
I do have another doctor joining me in July, and that's been planned. That's sort of been what we were going to do the whole
With
time.
the same philosophy?
Exactly. He'll be part of the same practice, so we'll do it the exact same way.
Here's the big question. Can you make big money being a doctor like this?
I think you can make money that's equivalent to what you can make working for a big healthcare organization as an employed physician.
All right, so you're not going to take a hit doing this. So people who
In the
have
long run, no. In the short run, I am.
obviously in starting the business,
Yeah.
with the publicity is probably going to get a nice little jump start.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it deserves the publicity. I think this model is something that is desperately needed and a terrific alternative. What's the message? What's the big message here?
I think the message is that what I'm offering is something that's innovative and unique, and I think it does have a potential future as a big stronghold in the healthcare system to help with some of those problems that we're all facing and the frustrations that we have, and even some of the cost issues.
You popular with other doctors? Do they like you or do they not like you for what you're doing?
I think so far other doctors seem to be okay with what I'm doing. They're more curious than anything. They don't dislike me, from what I can tell. They know I'm just trying to fill a void that I think
What's
is
there
out
to be curious about? It's pretty self-explanatory. It was for you when you were watching it, right?
Well, for me, it's simple, it's straightforward, it's old school, it's the way things used to be. But when you're used to working in an insurance-based system, it's a little bit radical.
Congratulations.
Thank
Good luck.
you. Thanks.
Come back and visit. I want to talk more about this. when we
Sure,
can.
lots to talk about.
All right. But Powerball next. I've made the speech about the worst day in your life, winning Powerball, but I just got the claustrophobia. I needed some entertainment, so even $500 million tonight. And you know what? Jess says, if you win, I just want $12,000. Laura didn't even ask. You don't want anything, Laura? Nothing? Sure. Sure. 5 or 4. Oh, no, she's counting me down. She's figuring it out. Good luck. See you tomorrow.